Okay, for those of you who are watching, just know that you're in for a treat. You're in for a treat. Dr. Robert Rountree is in the house. We're going to call him Bob today. Bob, and so will you. And we're going to fasten our seatbelts because we're going to learn and grow together. And I know the music is starting soon, and that's when we dance. Let me see. Is the music coming on? I don't hear it. I don't hear the music.
The Lillian McDermott Show.
We love, we fear, bridges we burn, we make mistakes, then we live and learn. When life gets tough, and it seems like your best ain't good enough. If you're in need of hope, you know where I'll be right here. Right here, and when you need a friend, you can count on me. I'll be right here, waiting for
you. This is the place you can always turn to when you need a friend. The Lillian McDermott Show. To reach out to Lillian, visit her on the web at whenyouneedafriend.com. Now let's all learn together. Here's Lillian McDermott.
Hello, my listening friend. It's so nice we can meet each other on the air on this beautiful, best day ever. And for those of you who have been tuning in for the last 7 years, or maybe just stumbled upon the show yesterday, welcome. I am so grateful for you. And for those of you who are just tuning in for the first time, trust me, it is by divine intervention. And so just know that I have been waiting for you. This is a great place where you can go to when you need a friend. And a little bit about me, it is my commitment to provide alternative ways to heal. And it is my mission to make awareness, responsibility, and truth a part of our everyday life. And I hope you, my listening, as well as my viewing friends, will feel empowered to embrace a new truth and live the life of your dreams. Now, part of this, and today I have been looking forward to this day for a while, and it's because there's something about this man that will grab you at hello. And I will tell you that when I heard this teacher, he's a teacher, author, speaker, Robert Rountree, MD, say, "Hello, class." I don't know if that's what he said, but I quote kind of loosely. He said, "Hello, class." At the Institute of Functional Medicine conference, I knew that whatever he said after that would cause me to learn and grow. That's a commitment that we have on the show. He truly, truly had me at hello, because that sound of his voice just captivated me. And then he provided a unique combination of traditional family medicine, nutrition. He's also a medical herbologist. I don't know if that's the right terminology. And he works with mind-body therapy in Boulder, Colorado since 1983. He also uses his skills as a medical detective to uncover symptoms that could be cause potential toxic overload in the body. And he's going to share today how to reverse, maybe, how to diagnose it, how to learn a little bit more about this so that you can take your health back. And since it is our purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge, I am grateful that Dr. Robert Rountree, MD, is here to do just that. I'm going to say it right off the bat. Welcome, Bob. Welcome to my class.
Hi, Lily. Hello, class.
Hello. Well, say it how you said it at the Institute of Functional Medicine.
Say good morning, class.
Ah, there we go.
Good morning.
Good morning. Okay,
or evening, whatever time of day it is for you, wherever you are in the world.
You're so thoughtful when it comes to that. So share a little bit about your credentials and your story and what led you to integrative functional medicine.
Okay, my story is that when I was 19, somebody handed me a book called Herbs, the Magic Healers by Paul Twitchell. And at that point, I had never really thought about the effect of food on health, or I didn't even know what an herb was really. You know, I knew that there were houseplants, and I maybe had a sense of oregano, but then I read this book, which is all about using herbal medicine to heal different health conditions, and it just completely blew my mind. It opened up a whole world for me. At that point, I thought about becoming an herbalist, you know, but there wasn't really a career track to do that. And so it really sunk in that if I wanted to get involved in healing, I should really get a conventional degree. So I did that. So I went to medical school in Chapel Hill in North Carolina. And I learned a lot of useful things. I was really quite surprised at how conventional medicine really had some things to offer. Mm-hmm. So I went through my training. Towards the end of that training, I met this guy named Jeffrey Bland. Yeah. I'm sure you know who he is, and many of your readers know who he is. He's really a giant in the field of nutritional medicine. You know, he's been leading seminars for many years, and what he was doing at that time was showing how there was actual science behind the field of nutrition. And, you know, I have to tell you, the context back then was that nutrition was the purview of the home economics majors. Nutrition was something that people went into, you know, if they wanted to be a good wife, or if they wanted to be, you know, the dietitian for a hospital, or the dietitian for a prison. That's what nutrition was all about. And here's this guy, Jeffrey Bland, that was basically saying, wait a minute, you can heal different conditions with dietary supplements and you know, nutritional regimens. Little did I know that sort of teaching that Jeff was putting out at the time would become a whole field of thought called functional medicine. Mm. And I was very lucky to be part of that movement from the very beginning. So this is what I've been doing for the last 35 years.
I think that's amazing. It's amazing, and how you are out there helping so many people learn this new truth so that they can take their health back. And we're going to continue talking to Dr. Robert Rountree, also known as Bob, when we return worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. We'll be right here waiting for you.
Right here waiting for you.
Okay, can we talk now? I think we can talk now. Yes, that is my theme song. Thank you. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. And so now that we're off the air, our Facebook friends and our YouTube friends can learn a little bit deeper. You know, I would love to have Jeffrey Bland on the show. Had a great pleasure of being in the same room with him several times. And wow, what energy he emits. And it's so important that, you know, when as you were going through your traditional instruction, you're becoming a medical, an MD, and getting your degree, did you feel at all that you were being indoctrinated to something that your body was already knowing was true, was not true, like herbs, for example? As you were going through and learning about herbs personally, were you being taught at that time, maybe 40 years ago, and how to ignore herbs and focus on pharmaceuticals?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when I would talk about herbs to, you know, my colleagues or my professors, you know, it was just a joke to them. They didn't take it seriously. They didn't think there was anything outside of the field of pharmaceuticals, right? It was all drugs and surgery. It still is pretty much in mainstream medicine, you know, but again, that's why I was so impressed with Jeff, because Jeff would say, here are the studies, you know. So, I would say, well, why can't we give this patient vitamin C? Well, there's no research on that. Well, yes, there is. Here are the papers. But it was amazing how much resistance there was back then 40 years ago and how much resistance there is today to the idea of dietary supplements. You know, you still see articles coming out saying that supplements are all worthless and they just make for expensive urine. You know, and of course my response to that is, well, when you say supplements are worthless, which supplements for which people at which time for what conditions? You know, you've got to be specific. You can't just have this blanket condemnation of thousands of supplements that are on the market and say they're all worthless, because there are plenty of studies that are out there.
Very good. Yeah, that is true. And I do want to talk about that. And I remember while you were in the conference, the Institute of Functional Medicine conference in Hollywood, that's where I met you for the first time. Actually, you know what? I'm trying to think if I had met you before. But when we were down there, you were talking about the differences between, you know, people actually getting sick and like if you're eating the same way as the other person, what is that barrier? What causes some people to get sick and other people not to get sick? And so you guys have been able to kind of like really look at the individual, because traditional medicine is one size fits all.
Yes.
You guys in functional medicine world is one size might fit you, but there's another size over here that might fit you better.
You know how I'd put it is, we've all heard about the canaries in the coal mine, right? That the miners take the canaries in there, and if the canaries start to fall over, they think, oh, there's something wrong with the air because the canaries are more sensitive. Well, I would say functional medicine is the study of canaries, right? Because we're all about what is it that makes a person more susceptible? What's different about that individual that will make something more toxic for them. An example that I often give is there was a story of a woman.
Why don't you hold that, because we're about to get started. I want you to write that down, and I want you to start the story of functional. Let's talk about functional medicine when we get back on the air. Okay, so I'm ready to get started. And then we're going to do music, and we'll have to be quiet.
Friend, you can count on me. I'll be right here waiting for you.
You can text Lillian McDermott or leave her a voicemail at 407-373-5959. Once again, here's Lillian.
Welcome back to the Lillian McDermott Radio Show. We always learn together. We grow and learn together. And today's teacher is Dr. Robert Rountree. And we're talking today about toxic overload. Although we want to start by kind of dipping our toe into functional medicine. We've done this for a long time. But if you're new to the show, this might be the first time that you hear about functional medicine. So Dr. Bob, let's talk about Bob. We click. Okay, so here we go with functional medicine. We were talking off the air, and I want to encourage people to go to either Facebook Live or YouTube to learn more about the off the air conversations. But let's talk about functional medicine and how one size does not fit all with functional medicine.
So the best way to think of it is that conventional medicine is trying to put people in the little boxes that we call diseases. Mm-hmm. You know, a person has joint aches and the doc wants to know, do you have rheumatoid arthritis or not? So the idea is that you get put in a little box, and then we've got a drug that we give for people that are in that box. Mm-hmm. And that's the end of the story. They don't ask the question, why did the person develop the problem in the first place? So functional medicine is asking the question, what has happened to the system? You know, an individual is a system. An individual is not just, a person who's going to be prone to getting a certain disease. Mm-hmm. You know, an individual has got, all these biological systems going on, the physiology, the human microbiome, genetics, all these different things are interacting. And when something starts to go wrong in those different interactions, then that can lead to illness. But we'd really rather pick it up long before it becomes an illness that gets a label. Mm-hmm. You know, if a person doesn't feel well, there's a reason they don't feel well. If a person has joint aches, but the blood tests don't show rheumatoid arthritis and the x-rays don't show osteoarthritis, then could it be that they're reacting to gluten? You know, could it be something like that? Or could it be that they don't have good tolerance for nightshades? Or could it be that, as you've mentioned, toxic overload is at work? You know, are they starting to accumulate certain kind of toxins in their body that create inflammation? So we're looking at things that go wrong with physiologic systems. You know, it's not the same as preventive medicine, because preventive medicine is basically saying, let's do early screening and try to pick up breast cancer, colon cancer, heart disease, and then give the person drugs. So that's all well and good, but it's not as sophisticated as functional medicine, you know, which is really looking at, you know, a lot of different biomarkers, indicators that again, the person maybe have a toxic overload or their immune system is starting to go haywire. We want to know what's happening as early as possible.
Yes, yes. Okay, so one of the parts of and I haven't shared this with you yet in our prepping and our working together, there was something you said, and at that was the moment I said, "Oh, he had me at hello, class. You had me at hello," which is, you said this, and I want to make sure I understood it correctly, and if I didn't understand it correctly, can you clarify it some more? But you said autoimmune disease is not the body attacking itself. Rather, it's the body attacking the modified self.
Modified self.
The modified self. Can you expand and elaborate on the modified self?
Okay, so again, if you think of an autoimmune disease like rheumatoid arthritis, it's in the joint, right? Suddenly a person's got swollen, hot joints, and you do blood tests and you say, hey, you're making antibodies against your own tissue. So, you know, this is just because your immune system has made a mistake and now it's attacked the joints instead of bacteria. But now we know that rheumatoid arthritis either starts in the gut or it starts in the lungs. Wow. What's the number one risk factor for rheumatoid arthritis? Cigarette smoking. Well, wait a minute. If cigarette smoking is a risk factor for RA, well, wouldn't air pollution do the same thing? Yes, absolutely. In fact, there's studies that show that when people live close to, let's say, a factory that's belching out pollutants, they have a higher risk of rheumatoid arthritis. And how do we know that? Because you can do a blood test for something called anti-CCP, cyclic citrullonated peptide. What the heck is that, you know? Again, a mainstream doc would just say, yeah, it's a test we do for rheumatoid arthritis. But actually, it's an indicator that the immune system has lost tolerance. Lost tolerance to what? It's lost tolerance to its own tissue. But why would it do that? It would do that if its own tissue was damaged. So air pollutants or cigarette smoke actually damage tissue, and it does that through a lot of different mechanisms, but the number one mechanism is something called free radicals. Oxidative stress will tear up tissue and create structures that don't look quite the same as normal. Our immune system is programmed to recognize foreign tissues, what I call dangerous strangers. That's actually not my term. I'd like to take credit for that, but you know, that's what you see in the immunology literature, is that the immune system goes after strangers that appear to be dangerous. And what's the marker? What's the indicator that these things are dangerous? Well, if there's tissue damage and the free radicals or some other processes actually change the structure of our normal tissues, it change the structure of our proteins. Right? In this case, they add something called citrulline, which is an amino acid. So you stick that amino acid on the tissue, and now it creates what you might call a freak molecule. Right? So that freak molecule has got, you know, let's just illustrate it. It's got a shape, you know, it's got a weird kind of texture to it. And our immune system will see that weird texture and go, that's foreign, that's a dangerous stranger, it's not supposed to be here. And if that happens over and over and over again, then eventually the immune system starts going, hey, wait a minute, I think there's some of those dangerous strangers in the joint. right? So this is a process that could take 10 or 15 years to develop. 10 or 15 years of cigarette smoking, or 10 or 15 years of living in an area with a lot of air pollution or other toxins, right? That it's basically a setup for everything to fall apart. So yeah, we're attacking modified self. We're not just attacking self because of some random error.
So the body is doing, actually, Bob, what it's supposed to do. The body
Yes.
is supposed to recognize these stranger dangers as opposed to,
Yes.
is it the danger strangers?
Dangerous strangers.
Dangerous strangers, instead of stranger danger, or yeah.
Right. Or just strangers. So, I mean, there's a lot of strangers in the body. Think about pregnancy, right? There's a stranger in the body. Why doesn't the immune system attack it?
Yeah.
So if the immune system just attacks strangers, then pregnancy wouldn't happen. If the immune system just attacks strangers, then what about the trillions of bacteria and viruses and fungi that are in our intestinal tract, the human microbiome? You know, those microbes live there our whole lives and our immune system doesn't attack them.
Yeah.
So there's got to be something different that makes that happen.
And so in looking for the different and looking for the body is doing what it's supposed to do. It's actually trying to get rid of the stranger. And many times, and we look at the foods that we eat that become the stranger, and the body's trying to get that out of our system. But then we say that it's doing us harm, that the body is harming us, when the body is trying to heal us and get us back to normal, right? Is that what I'm understanding you say?
Yeah, I mean, that brings in the whole issue of barriers, you know, and the way I phrase it is good fences make good neighbors. Mm-hmm. If you've got a good, healthy intestinal wall, then you can tolerate tons of food. And literally, a person eats tons of food in a lifetime. So there's lots of food going through the intestinal tract. And, you know, the immune system doesn't generally have a problem with that. But if that barrier becomes damaged, or what we call leaky, then you have a condition called leaky gut syndrome. Mm-hmm. Mainstream medicine has made fun of that term. Oh, there's nothing to it. You know, that's kind of a goofy concept, leaky gut. But actually, there are thousands of medical papers written about leaky gut. Thousands. And the notion is that what happens with leaky gut is the barrier breaks down, and that allows microscopic particles of food to actually leak into the bloodstream. Well, if those particles are in the bloodstream, they're not supposed to be there, right? They could be interpreted as a dangerous stranger. And that's when the immune system gets riled up.
Okay. And so let's talk about, because, you know, you had also mentioned that why are some people for getting diabetes where other people don't get diabetes and they're eating the same way? What causes the body to actually, I was listening to everything you were saying, by the way, what causes the body to go to that next level of dis-ease? And so what are some of the worst offenders that you're seeing that is the tipping point between, you know, being kind of like your body like catching up and trying to take care of these dangerous strangers versus actually giving up and saying, oh, I can't help you anymore? Okay.
So we're all, you know, I hate to say this because it sounds very morbid and grim, but we're all swimming in toxins.
Yeah.
You know, it's amazing. I mean, every one of us has got a number of toxins in our body, and these are, you know, everything from metals to organochlorines, organophosphates, you know, a whole range of these toxins. And these toxins many of them are what's called endocrine disruptors. So the endocrine system is the hormonal system, you know, and that's involved in everything from insulin to thyroid to adrenals to reproduction. And that endocrine system is very susceptible to the effect of these toxins. Mm-hmm. Well, people vary considerably in their ability to eliminate these toxins. Mm-hmm. A lot of it's genetic, but there are other factors as well, which we can get into. So if an individual has difficulty eliminating these toxins, they stay in the body longer, and they start damaging the organs that make hormones. It's really as simple as that.
Okay. And so, as simple as it is, as you are looking for beyond the person to be in the box, you're looking beyond the box. What are some of the things that we can do? And I think that that's something we can talk about in our next segment, because I'm asking you a very powerful, long question of what we
Yes.
can do to make sure those toxins don't penetrate our body. But some of these toxins that we don't even know that are part of these endocrine disruptors are what?
Yes.
Plastics? What are some of the, real quick, let's go through the list.
Well, organochlorines were the first known class to do that, to be these endocrine disruptors. So those are things like DDT, dioxin, that whole family of chemicals there were introduced as insect killers or insect repellents. But, they're not made so much commercially anymore, but our bodies are full of them. Agent Orange is, one that's pretty well known. I had a patient who used to be a crop duster down in the New Orleans area, and he ended up developing diabetes as a result of that exposure.
And interesting. And was he eating well?
He was, back at the time, he was eating a Southern diet. Not anymore.
Okay.
He's changed his diet now.
Yeah, so the thing is that, perhaps maybe if you give the body what it needs, it might be able to fight it a little bit more. And so today we're talking to Dr. Robert Rountree about the toxic overload in our body and how to reverse it when we continue our conversation worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. We'll be right here waiting for you.
I'll be right here waiting for you.
Okay, so for those of you who are watching on Facebook Live, we're doing something new. We are, normally when we're off the air and I can continue talking, but we're pre-recording this because of the time zone difference, but we're still playing it live on Facebook, which is really, really cool. So if you're asking questions today for Dr. Rountree or for Bob, you're welcome to write your questions in the comments section. I'll go back and maybe send them to him later on, but just know that right now we are recording. We recorded live. This is previously recorded. We're trying something new on Facebook Live so that you feel a part of our broadcast this morning. So with that in mind, make sure you write your questions, your comments, share this broadcast. Also, I want to encourage you to check out my sponsors, Liberty Health Share, Keep Me Safe Organics, the pharmacy, which works with compounds here in Brevard County, and so on and so forth. So there are, and also there's so many different things. Just check out my banner on my Facebook page so that you have that information. But now we get to privately talk with Dr. Bob. I love it. My husband asked me to call him Bob, and I told him I would not. So, but I am calling you Bob.
You have my permission.
Because I've got your permission. There we go. And so with that in mind, there's so much we don't know. When you talk about the DDTs, and we're saying that doesn't exist anymore, but how long does that stay in the system?
Oh, it stays in the body perhaps a lifetime. If a woman, and here's the issue, is if a woman gets exposed to DDT before she has a baby, that goes into her body fat, and then if she has a baby and breastfeeds the baby, then that DDT gets passed on to the baby. And then, if that's a little baby girl, then she will carry that DDT. So it'll stay in the body fat for generations.
Wow. Can we talk about how to get rid of all this stuff? Because that's basically what you're doing when you're seeing your patients in your practice.
Yeah, well, the number one thing is to lower your body fat, right? Because that's where these things accumulate, and that's where they stay. So when you lower your body fat, then it gets rid of them. The problem is if you lower your body fat too quickly, then the levels can go up really rapidly and you can get sick. So weight loss should always be slow.
And I think So important that we talk about this on the air because, we can have all these wonderful conversations off the air, but, the people that are driving right now that are listening to you are missing out on it. And I do want to encourage them to go to my Facebook Live and my YouTube and all that. But still, as that's progressing, I still want to talk about the things that we can do to get rid of these toxins in our body. So when we go back from the break, I'm going to talk about my social media, how to get a hold of me, and then I will reintroduce you so that we can talk a little bit more about, how to switch how to change this madness, because it really is maddening what's happening in the food industry, what's happening in the world, because we don't know what we don't know. And it's doctors like you that are making such a huge difference in the world. So thank you. Thank you, Bob. I appreciate that.
Sure.
Okay,
Yep.
and it looks like we're ready to get started. And again, I want to remind my followers on Facebook, before we go back on the air, can you share a way that people can get a hold of you? Because I was looking for your website, and I went onto your website, and it wasn't ready yet.
Well, yeah,
I've been checking you out.
I don't really have much of an online presence. I guess they could reach me through the Institute for Functional Medicine. They have a website there, and I think my contact information is through there. I also have a LinkedIn page. So LinkedIn might be actually the quickest way.
Okay, and that one's just Dr. Robert Rountree?
Yeah, if they used to go to LinkedIn and type Robert Rountree, MD, then that has information about my clinic, the address, the phone number, etc.
Okay, let's get started. Let's now we can't talk. We can still dance while the music is going. So here we go.
When you need a friend, you can count on me. I'll be right here waiting for you.
You can text Lillian McDermott or leave her a voicemail at 407-373-5959. Once again, here's Lillian.
Welcome back to the Lillian McDermott radio show, where we always learn and grow together. You can hear us worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. I am your host, and it is my goal, Lillian McDermott, and it's my goal that we learn from each other. Know that the person that is standing before you knows something you don't know. Be curious about what they know instead of critical. There's so much that we dismiss and miss out of because we become so critical. We want to be right about whatever it is that we were taught. And it doesn't support us anymore. It just doesn't support us anymore. And so I want to encourage you to go to whenyouneedafriend.com. This is where we take 100% responsibility for our lives. Yes, we can take a pill, or we can take responsibility. That's my registered service mark, and that's how I've lived my life ever since I learned this new truth. And so I want to encourage you to do the same by going to whenyouneedafriend.com, subscribing to my website, and while you're at the website, make sure you click on all my social media, follow me, like me there, so that we can have these conversations on the air, and you'll know who is on the show. Right now, we are broadcasting the show live on Facebook so that you can also get the on and off the air conversations. While you are at whenyouneedafriend.com, I want you to check out my sponsors page, my featured sponsors like Liberty Health Share and all the others that are just absolutely changing the way we can grow the show so that you have this information. And so go there and figure out who my sponsors are, and figure out how you can support them the way they're supporting the show. If you don't like Facebook, and if you don't like going on websites, you can also find me on demand at iTunes, Google Play Music, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and more. It's TuneIn. I think TuneIn is another one. But also, when you're on Facebook, on whenyouneedafriend.com, check out my YouTube channel. When you go onto my YouTube channel, you are able to get the show sent to you. So when whether you subscribe at whenyouneedafriend.com or my YouTube channel, once the show is published, it goes to you so that you can hear the show over and over again. This is a classroom. And I remember hearing Dr. Robert Rountree at the Institute of Functional Medicine say, "Hello, class." And he said this with this booming booming hello, and he had me right there. And I knew that everything that he was going to say after that was going to change my life. Thank you so much, Bob, for everything that you're doing to make your information so accessible.
My pleasure.
Yes. And so before we went on the break, we were talking about, I asked you the question, or what are the offenders? And of course, you talked about DDT and dioxin, I think you said, and Agent Orange. I mean, it's like, how does that even play into our life? We don't even think of those things in our lives anymore. But how do they remain in our society today when we don't even think we're exposed to it?
Well, we have a lot of us who are getting up there in years, we have that stuff in our body fat, and you can actually get tested and prove that that's the case. So we know that's there. We're not as focused on organochlorines, although those were kind of the beginning of this issue. Now one of the biggies is called atrazine, which is used, it's a weed killer used all over the Midwest in the United States. There is a chemical called Roundup is a chemical called glyphosate.
Oh.
And glyphosate is just showing up everywhere. I mean, probably 80 to 90% of people have glyphosate in their urine, if not more. Even if you eat organic, you've got glyphosate in your urine. It's just because glyphosate with the active chemical in Roundup is just everywhere now. It's everywhere. And then there's a chemical called bisphenol A, which is used to line canned foods, and it's also on cash register receipts. That's another one that's in the urine of about 95% of Americans.
Wow.
So, the chemicals you've never heard of, you've never thought about them, and they're in your body. And many of them are endocrine disruptors. Glyphosate, the chemical in Roundup, is an antibiotic. I'm not making this up. It's an antibiotic. That's how it was originally licensed before it was used as a weed killer. It was an antibiotic. So it kills off healthy bacteria in our gut and can create a condition that's called dysbiosis, which is basically means unhealthy life, right? There's a chemical that, we're all exposed to that causes unhealthy life. What does that mean? And we don't know that much about how to get rid of it, other than getting your liver working well, having a healthy intestinal tract, having healthy bacteria in your gut. If all those systems are working, theoretically, that helps you eliminate the chemical better.
I love to focus on what's going right and how can we take our life back? How can we take ownership of our life? And it could be very scary. All the exposures, all the toxins, it might make some people just put their hands up in the air and say, well, we're going to die from something, might as well enjoy my life. But are we really enjoying life? And so there's so many different things that we can do to change this. First of all, you talk about that it's in our body fat and we can test it. We can test our body fat. How do you test your body fat and see what's in the toxins in your body?
Well, in the old days, we used to do a fat biopsy. I didn't have many people lining up to do that. You have to take a pretty good divot of fat to make that happen. But, that's the way it's sometimes done in labs. But there's a company called Genova Diagnostics that's based in Asheville, North Carolina, and they do what's called a lipid-adjusted, fat-adjusted blood test for toxins. And I do run that panel on my patients and find it useful. This is for who would do such a panel. I mean, theoretically, you could do a toxic panel on everybody, but this is a person who just doesn't feel right. They're run down, they're tired, they're achy. There's a zillion things that you think of that could be causing those symptoms. So one thing you can do is look at their total toxic load. You can measure their metals, or you can do this lipid-adjusted panel to see if perhaps they've got an overload of a whole range of toxins.
Okay, so this Genova Diagnostics, is that an expensive test to do?
I think it's about $500 or $600. So it's not outrageous.
It's not outrageous, and then does it give you more than does it help you find like a roadmap back to health?
Yeah, because it will help identify, the general category of a toxin that a person is exposed to.
Okay.
Now, I would say I often do that in combination with genetic testing. There's a number of genes that we know that can predispose a person to having a higher toxic load. Let me give you a really good example of that.
Great.
There's a condition called Gilbert syndrome. It's spelled like Gilbert's, Gilbert. And doctors for a long time have said, oh, this is a benign, safe condition. The only consequence of it is that if you fast overnight, your eyes turn yellow. You get a little jaundice. And so it's commonly picked up on a lab test. Now, somewhere around 15% of the U.S. population has this condition. Mm-hmm. And again, in the past, I've always said this is benign. It doesn't cause a problem. But Dr. Joanna Lampe at University of Washington actually found out that the enzyme that's impaired genetically with Gilbert syndrome is also involved in getting rid of environmental toxins, right? So what that means is if the person's got this condition, it's not just an issue of their eyes turning yellow when they're fast, but they have trouble eliminating all kinds of fat-soluble toxins from their body.
Interesting.
Well, but, okay, you can tell a person that, then they just go into despair. What do? But Dr. Lampe found out something really valuable, which is if those people eat broccoli, then it actually activates the slow enzyme that's not eliminating toxins. It activates it to be more effective at getting rid of toxins.
Interesting. So if we all ate a little bit more broccoli, whether we have this Gilbert syndrome or not, it benefit all of us?
Yes, and it's not just broccoli, it's that whole family of vegetables called brassica vegetables, which is broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, kale, kohlrabi, arugula. All of those vegetables have the same class of chemicals that activate the body's detoxification system. So that's the good news for today is that, you can start by eating that class of vegetables. And if you don't like them, you can actually get dietary supplements that have extracts of these things as well.
Is that DIM, D-I-M?
DIM is one example. Another one is called sulforaphane glucosinolate.
What does that mean?
SGS, also called SGS. Well, it's a cousin to DIM.
Okay.
And just like DIM, it activates enzymes in the liver that help get rid of toxins.
That's interesting. I'm finding that is the liver like the first line of defense that gets attacked most? Is that where
the liver and the gut lining and the liver are the body's two mainstays of defense against environmental toxins?
And how long does it take for the liver to detox, or how do you detox that? How do you get all these chemicals out when we're constantly being bombarded with it around our world?
Well, it should take a matter of minutes or hours, but if the liver's overloaded, then everything becomes sluggish, and that process slows down.
Wow. Okay. So, for those of you who are listening today, if you feel a little sluggish, or if you feel that you're eating well, but you still don't have the symptoms or the life that you want, it could be something else. It could be the toxic overload in your body. And it also, of course, we talk about the mind-body-spirit connection. It could be an emotional aspect to your disease as well. So we're going to continue our conversation with Dr. Robert Rountree when we return worldwide, live at worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. We'll be right here waiting for you.
I'll be right here waiting for you.
Okay, so I hate not being able to talk to you while the music is playing, but this is something new that we're trying. We've had so many people say, like when I do pre-records, "Oh, I miss your song, your music." Well, now you got it. You got it. Yeah, now you got it. Okay, so DIM. Let's go back to DIM. You mentioned this other. What's it called again?
Sulforaphane glucosinolate.
Say that again.
Yeah, it's. Can I mention a brand name, or
No, not a brand.
Not really. Not a brand. So there's several vitamin companies that sell it. Let's just put it that way.
Okay. Say the name again, because you cut off at the beginning.
Okay, sulforaphane glucosinolate.
Okay.
All right.
And that is like
Now,
a sister of DIM.
it's a sister of DIM.
And what's the advantage?
They both complement each other. I use both in my practice. We think of DIM more as something that regulates abnormal hormones in the body, and sulforaphane glucosinolate is a little more broad spectrum. So that's the best way to put it. So I use DIM a lot. I think every woman that is taking estrogen, as a replacement, should be taking DIM. I really do.
Even if they eat a lot of broccoli and they have a whole food plant-based diet?
Well, I mean, if you're taking, a hormone tablet, that's going to be harder to overcome with diet alone.
Interesting.
You know what I'm saying? It's because that's a more potent thing that you're putting into your body.
Okay.
Now, you maybe could do it with broccoli if you ate a pound a day. That's kind of the ballpark of what we're talking about.
Pretty hard to do that, isn't it? Huh?
It's hard to do. I mean, there's studies that show that if people eat a pound a day of brassica vegetables, their cancer risk drops dramatically.
What is the?
It has to be lightly steamed, like, almost raw. So when you do it like we did in the South, where I grew up, you boil it for hours. That doesn't work.
You could drink the juice. You could drink the juice, right? The broccoli juice.
Yeah, or actually the way to go is broccoli sprouts.
Yeah.
Now, if you can eat broccoli sprouts every day, you may not need the supplement.
There's so many. Okay, but if we're eating the broccoli sprouts, then it might also have glyphosate. So then how do they keep that out of the nutraceuticals, like the DIMs and all that?
Yeah, well, DIM is synthetic, right? So it's not actually a food extract. And the sulforaphane glucosinolate that I mentioned is made from broccoli seeds. Okay. So you don't expect to find toxic contaminants in there because of the way it's extracted. So, any good supplement company these days uses extraction methods that are pretty clean.
How much is a pound? I mean, a pound of broccoli isn't that much.
Doesn't cost that much.
Yeah, so I'm thinking, because I buy, maybe you can help with this. I buy my my veggies, my veggies frozen, because it's just my husband and I at the house, and I hate for things to go to waste, and so I buy my broccoli or my veggies and my fruits frozen organic.
Yeah.
Do you have any opinion on that, or any research that's been done?
Organic is always better. If it's flash frozen like fresh, that's definitely better than canned. Fresh is best if you can do that. But I mean, the worst is anything that's in a package, right? As soon as you start packaging food, you process food, then you get all the added chemicals. And they're very good research papers that have shown that if you just tell people stop eating packaged foods and go to fresh fruits and vegetables every day, then you measure toxins in their urine. Within 3 days, the toxic level drops 90%.
Wow.
Just by going fresh, not even going organic.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
But so the biggest source of exposure is all these processed foods. And, I'll be honest, we talk about toxic chemicals, but one of the most toxic things we put in our body is high fructose corn syrup.
Oh, let's talk about that when we come back, because the sugar addiction that we have in this world that's celebrated, we actually have holidays that celebrate and promote the sugar addiction that we have. So let's talk about, is it corn fructose?
High fructose corn syrup. HFCS, which is in everything now, is in all processed foods.
Yes. And I also want to talk about maybe a case study, because you presented some case studies of people that were feeling certain. I don't know if you could talk about that as well on the air when we go back on the air. Is that something?
Well, I'd have to think about who I would present. I have so many thousands of cases of it.
Okay. Well, if you can think of
general cases.
Yeah, if you can think of something and you can give an example of how some people's health has changed, that would be awesome. Yep. Okay, awesome. And I know we're ready to get started. And this is our 4th segment. Can you believe how fast time has flown?
It's flying.
We have to do this again.
Yes.
Here we go.
count on me. I'll be right here waiting for you.
You can text Lillian McDermott or leave her a voicemail at 407-373-5959. Once again, here's Lillian.
Welcome back to the Lillian McDermott radio show, where we always learn and grow together. Today's teacher is Dr. Robert Rountree, and he is a featured presenter with the Institute of Functional Medicine, which is where I met him for the first time in Hollywood, Florida, while he was giving his several talks. Every talk that he gave, I just made sure that I was sitting there in the audience, because, you know, from the moment he says, "Hello, class," can you say that? Can you just say, "Hello, class"?
Hello, class.
No,
Good morning,
that's
class.
not how you did it. That's
I do. I like to be professorial, you know. Hello, class.
you just everybody laughed every time you did it, because you say it in a way that you come across as, okay, we're here to learn.
Yes.
Forget the fact that you're a doctor or a healthcare professional. You're a class right now, and we're all here to learn together. And I love. Did you know that I got all that from Hello, Class?
I did not. I'm amazed.
I pick up all these things. Okay, so while we're talking off the air, you know, we were talking about one of the greatest offenders, and I shared it with you. I do want to start the segment with this. We're talking about toxic overload in the body and how to reverse it and how to heal your body. And so you talked about high fructose corn syrup, and this high fructose corn syrup is in almost everything, like everything processed, and they have different names for it, do they? There's like they're trying to smuggle
Sometimes
it.
they'll say corn syrup, but you know, that's misleading. It's not. This stuff has nothing to do with corn. It might have originated in corn, but you know, by the time they're done with it, it has no resemblance to corn at all. It's basically a combination. You know, it's mostly fructose, free fructose. And okay, this is a whole other discussion, but we have an epidemic of fatty liver right now in our country. And when we think toxins play a big role in fatty liver, but high fructose corn syrup is probably the #1 offender for causing this.
Okay, so where do we find this high? You said in everything that's processed, but
jam. I mean, you know, you find it in any kind of snack food. You know, it was thought to be a healthier sweetener than white sugar. So they took out the white sugar and they put in the high fructose corn syrup. It actually is worse for you than white sugar.
Okay, so let's talk about
white sugar.
Why? What does it do to us? You said it goes into fatty liver, and why is... Let's talk about fatty liver and non-alcoholic or
non-alcoholic fatty liver disease.
Okay, so let's talk about that.
It's a massive epidemic. It affects 1/3 of Americans. 1/3 of Americans have some degree of fatty liver. So most people don't know they have it.
And what are the symptoms of fatty liver?
Well, there's no symptoms. The only way you know is that you get a blood test and it shows that your liver enzymes are elevated. That's the whole problem. People don't know it. And then it progresses and causes liver damage, and then that's when the person gets really sick. They develop cirrhosis, and by that point, it's too late. So it's important for anybody who's overweight, anybody who's got type 2 diabetes, you know, to make sure they're getting their liver enzymes checked regularly by their doctors.
Is that your bilirubin?
No, it's something called the ALT. The AST and the ALT are the two biggies that you get. But when you get what's called the liver panel, that's included in the liver panel.
Okay.
So, you know, if you go to your doctor and say, I just want a standard liver panel, it's very cheap. Or you can go to a health fair. You know, anytime there's a lot of my patients go to a annual health fair and get their blood tested there. And I've had a surprising number of people come into me as a first-time patient who said, you know, I thought I was healthy. I went to the health fair. My liver enzymes were up. What does that mean? I test them for viruses to make sure they don't have hepatitis B or C. And then I say, well, it really looks like fatty liver to me. Tell me about your diet. You know, and then that's the point where I say, we got to cut out the sweetened beverages. You know, that's the #1 offender is pop. You know, do people go, well, there's no sugar in that. It's high fructose corn syrup. Well, that's not a good thing. So you asked me how that causes a problem. Fructose when it's in fruit is not a problem, right? If you eat an apple, there's nothing wrong with eating an apple, but when you take the fructose out, then it actually stimulates certain genes in our body to tell the body to lay down more fat. And that happens in muscle and it happens in liver. So isolated pure fructose by itself as a sweetener completely disrupts body chemistry. It's really one of the worst things you can put in your body.
So if you see high fructose corn syrup or just fructose, they're the same thing.
Right. If it's fructose, is isolated fructose. They're not the same thing, but they cause the same problem.
Okay.
It might mean they've come from a slightly different source, but you're not going to see fructose by itself on the label very much. You're going to see HFCS, right? And that's the warner, because who knows what those initials mean.
Yeah. Wow.
So that's I would call that an endocrine disruptor. It's a toxic compound. It's just as toxic as mercury or arsenic or lead, it's really harmful to the body. One person that you can track in terms of the research is Dr. Robert Lustig, Lustig. He's a pediatric endocrinologist who's written a lot of research on this. And he thinks that this high fructose corn syrup is the major cause of the diabetes epidemic in this country.
Okay, so we're talking about high fructose corn syrup and fructose and the way that they hide sugar in these processed foods. But
Yes.
is there any, like, let's talk about aspartame, and let's talk about all these artificial sweeteners. Like, people go this extreme opposite. Okay, it doesn't have fructose, it has aspartame, and we know aspartame is causing all sorts of diseases too. It's a little bit harder to track it, but it's just, in this sense, my intuition tells me that stuff, it can't be good for you. Mm-hmm. It just can't be. But I am a fan of stevia. Are you?
Which is, stevia is a plant-based extract. There's actually research showing that stevia can help with metabolic syndrome, which is prediabetes, that stevia can treat Lyme disease. Really? Yeah, I'm not making this up. I don't treat a lot of Lyme disease, but this is my colleagues that do treat Lyme disease tell me it's part of the treatment program. So stevia is not a bad thing at all. It's got a little bit of an aftertaste that some people find, off-putting. But
it's only in the processed one, in the processed stevia.
Because
I've tasted the stevia leaf, and it's not
the
so
drops
bad.
are not bad. The drops are not bad.
So let's talk about fatty liver disease. You said that there's an epidemic about this. What can we do to reverse it? Because the liver regenerates.
Yeah. Well, the number one thing is to avoid, the high fructose corn syrup that's causing it in the first place. Weight loss, you need to lose about 10% of your body weight to get rid of the fatty liver, right? So we're not just talking about losing a pound or two. We're talking about losing many pounds, and it's got to be mostly body fat that you're losing to get rid of it. We know that exercise helps a lot. About 30 minutes, 5 times a week is the minimum. Mm-hmm. That can make a huge difference. And I've seen people reverse fatty liver just by those two things, weight loss and exercise.
Very good.
Curcumin is also another really useful thing. Curcumin is an extract of turmeric, which is found in curry. And there are a lot of dietary supplements that have curcumin in them. There's several published studies on this. Very beneficial.
Well, this is I'm telling you, to be continued. I think that hopefully there's enough information here that will make us take notice, Bob, that we are in control of our health, and there's so many different components. And it's not just taking the pill that will do it, that will give us permission to continue eating the way that got us sick in the first place. That's what the pill does, is give us permission to continue to abuse our body.
We're not talking about statins. We're all exposed to toxins, and there are foods we can eat, like curry. I mentioned turmeric, like broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, kale, pomegranate, lots of healthy foods that will help us do something about this toxic load.
Awesome. Wonderful. And so with that in mind, Dr. Rountree, I'm so excited that I think we're going to start the series with you, because there's so much information that we need to know that we don't even know. So thank you so much for being a part of the show today.
It's been my great pleasure.
Pleasure has been ours. I'm really so grateful. And for those of you, my listening friends, if you want to learn more about Bob, Dr. Rountree, you can go to LinkedIn. You'll find him there, or you can go to the Institute of Functional Medicine. That's where I love to learn and grow with all of you. Please remember, I'll be right here waiting for you worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. This is Lillian McDermott wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day ever. The cutest. You're the cutest. Thank you so much.
The opinions and advice expressed on the Lillian McDermott radio show are intended for the individual callers and guests on the program and are presented to our wider audience solely for general educational purposes. Please act responsibly and consult personally with your own medical, psychological, or nutritional expert before taking any steps to improve your life.
Okay, so you heard the man. Okay,
Cool.
So thank you so much, Bob. I want to, before we close the show, because we're still recording, I wanted to see, can you appeal to people that are just so dismissive of their food that they're eating as being the cause of their symptoms, which we call disease? It's the body speaking to us. But we give it a disease name, and all of a sudden, that's the focus. That's
then
the
I
focus.
have rheumatoid arthritis, or I have multiple sclerosis, or I have systemic lupus, or diabetes, or thyroid, etc. But that's not the end of the story. It's not the end of the story. You know, it's the beginning. Here's how I think of diagnosis. It's the beginning, right? When you get a diagnosis, that's where it all starts. And, you know, if a person gets diagnosed with Hashimoto's thyroiditis and the doctor gives them a pill and they feel fine, good for you, right? Good for you if that's all that it takes. But for most people, they take the prescribed treatments and they don't get the resolution they expect, right? And those are the people I'm talking to right now. You know who you are, right? You've done what you were told. You're taking the medicine, but you still don't feel optimal. And that's when you have to start asking the question, is there anything else? And the next step is to say, what is it that I'm eating, or what is it that I'm doing? It's not just the food, it's your thinking process. You know, as you mentioned, the mind-body connection. If you have a lot of negative thoughts, and that influences your immune system, right? So I'm really speaking to the people who are saying, I know there's something more. It's hard to convince somebody who's been to the doctor who's told, take the drug and that's the end of the story. If that's what they want to believe, fine. I'm not going to try to convince them, right? But the rest of you are saying, I know there's more to this. You know, that's when you start looking into food. And, you know, there's some simple things that you can do, like cutting out the junk food, cutting out the high fructose corn syrup, that can make a massive difference. And then it may get more specific. A lot of people find when they take gluten out of their diet that it's life-changing, right? That's not everybody, but there are a lot of people that don't have the genetically driven celiac disease, right? Which is a condition where you cannot eat gluten or you get deathly ill. But there are other people that eat gluten and it's just not good for them, right? It messes with their immune system, causes all kinds of problems, and they find they cut it out and they dramatically feel better. They have more energy. Their joints don't ache as much, etc. And their mainstream doctor might be really dismissive of that, might say, what are you talking about? But guess what? There is research supporting what I'm saying. This is not made up.
Very good.
And typical doctor is about 10 or 15 years behind the research.
Very good. Well, thank you so much, Bob, for being on the show today. I'm hoping that we could do this again.
I'd love to.
Yeah, and I would love to invite Jeffrey Bland to the show. I would love that. And we'll probably reach out to him, and I'll have Ashley reach out to him. But thank you so much for being on the show today. For those of you who are watching on Facebook Live or on YouTube, make sure you share this information, because there's a lot of us out there. This is not information that you see on television, because, the sponsors of the television show is going to want to promote their sponsors or the
processed food.
That's right, which is processed foods and all this. That's how they get their money. But this information here is how we can take our health back. So please like this. If you're on YouTube, share it. On Facebook, share it. And let's grow the show and let's grow this information. So thank you until we see each other again. Thank you, Dr. Dr. Bob, for being on the
Dr.
show.
Bob.
Dr.
All
Bob.
right.
Thank
Goodbye,
you.
class.
Goodbye. You got that resounding, booming voice
Goodbye,
that you have.
class. Yes.
Thank you.